My name is Emily, and I'm 26 years old. I've always been someone who avoids the spotlight. I work as a project coordinator at a small event planning company here in Brookville, a job I've held for the past 3 years. My apartment is small but cozy, only a short walk from my office. My days follow a simple routine. Wake up, go to work, return home, occasionally meet up with a few friends, and spend most weekends visiting my parents. Many people might find my life boring, but for me, it's peaceful. Large gatherings make me uncomfortable, and you'll never see me at loud parties or wild social events. I cherish my quiet little world. But my older sister Vanessa is the complete opposite. Ever since childhood, she's been the star of the family. While I quietly sat in the back during school plays, she was front and center, dazzling everyone. When I stayed home studying, she was out campaigning for class president, and winning, of course. At every family dinner, my parents would gush over her accomplishments. "Vanessa, you were amazing on stage," Mom would say with sparkling eyes, before turning to me and adding with a sigh, "Emily, you should try it next time. It would be good for you to get involved, like your sister." I would just smile politely and retreat to my room. They never truly understood that I was perfectly happy being myself. But no matter what I did, I was always compared to Vanessa. Every achievement of mine was placed next to her grand successes. And as we grew older, the gap only widened. When we got to college, Vanessa took her ambition to a whole new level. While she was officially studying to become a nutritionist, she started modeling part-time. By our second year, she was already appearing in regional fashion shows and getting featured in local lifestyle magazines. After graduation, she never even considered working in nutrition. Her modeling career had taken off so strongly that she moved straight into it full-time. And then she met Logan at one of her runway shows, a man who came from serious wealth. Expensive cars, designer clothes, and luxury vacations were just the beginning. Soon our family dinners turned into constant updates about Logan and his extravagant gifts. "You won't believe what Logan surprised me with this week," Vanessa would announce as soon as we sat down. One week it was a diamond bracelet, the next a brand new smartwatch, and then a handbag that easily cost more than my 2 months' rent. "They're flying me to his family's private resort next weekend," she would brag, while my parents listened with glowing admiration. Meanwhile, I quietly ate my meal, pushing my food around my plate, as if trying to disappear from the room. A few weeks ago, I finally got a promotion at work, senior project manager, with a decent salary bump. I tried sharing the news, but my parents quickly steered the conversation back to Vanessa's latest luxury story. Another Saturday arrived, and as usual, I went to visit my parents' house. But this time, I had no idea what awaited me. As I walked up the familiar path to my parents' house that morning, the cool breeze carried sounds of excitement coming from inside. Before I could even put my key in the door, it swung open. Vanessa burst out like a whirlwind, practically glowing. She shoved her left hand in front of my face, and there it was, a massive engagement ring, sparkling like a disco ball under the sunlight. "He proposed," she squealed, spinning around. "Logan asked me to marry him." Mom and Dad came rushing out behind her, both beaming with pride. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, barely holding back her happy tears, while Dad stood with his arm around her, grinning like a proud teenager. "We're hosting the engagement party right here," Vanessa added breathlessly. "Logan's parents and their entire family are coming. It's going to be absolutely perfect." I smiled politely, genuinely happy for her. "That's wonderful news," I said, but she was already pacing around, pulling out her phone to start planning. "We need to finalize the guest list," she announced, her voice shifting into full control mode. Mom chimed in, "Let's invite Uncle Richard. His company just expanded to Europe." "Yes, perfect," Vanessa nodded quickly. "And Cousin Melissa, she's a surgeon now, right? And Professor Harris, Dad's brother, who runs that research institute." They huddled together, writing names on a notepad, listing only the most successful relatives. I stood awkwardly near the door, still holding my purse like some forgotten decoration. "What about Aunt Carol?" Dad asked, hesitating. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. "The one who works at the grocery store?"
No.
We can't have Logan's family meeting people like that. This party needs to be exclusive, only successful family members. As they kept crossing off anyone who didn't fit Vanessa's version of success, factory workers, teachers, small business owners, I couldn't help but chuckle quietly. Well, I said, half joking, I guess I shouldn't expect an invitation then. Event planning isn't exactly glamorous enough for your guest list. The room went silent. Vanessa slowly looked up at me with irritation, choosing her words carefully. Of course you'll come. Logan knows I have a sister. It would be odd if you weren't there. She scribbled something on her list and added coldly, we can't have people asking questions. That stung, not because it was unexpected, but because Mom and Dad simply nodded, agreeing like it was the most natural thing in the world. The date for the engagement party was set. In the weeks that followed, I chose not to visit my parents' house like I normally did. Every time I called, the background was filled with noisy discussions, Mom negotiating with caterers, Dad discussing wine options, and Vanessa barking out orders like a director on a movie set. 3 weeks before the party, my phone buzzed with Vanessa's name. It was the first time she had called since the guest list incident. Hello. I answered, bracing myself. Got my dress today, she announced without greeting me first. Custom-made. Cost me $8,200. Her tone oozed with pride. Logan's mother came with me. She said I looked like royalty. I tried to sound supportive. That's great. Then, her voice changed into her usual commanding tone, the one I had grown up with. Now listen, you need to get yourself something appropriate to wear. And by appropriate, I don't mean your usual thrift store junk. My clothes are fine, I replied calmly. No, they're not, she snapped. I'm not having you embarrass me at my engagement party. Get a proper dress. Something that doesn't make you look like you just came from a clearance sale. And do something with your hair too. Before I could even respond, she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that old mix of anger and hurt bubbling inside me. But beneath all of it, a small voice whispered, maybe she was right about one thing. When was the last time I really dressed up? The next day, I left work early and went shopping. After several stores, I finally found it, a deep royal blue dress that hugged my figure just right and reached slightly below my knees. The rich color made my eyes pop, and for once, I actually felt beautiful. The saleswoman helped me find matching heels, and for the first time in a long while, I felt confident. Finally, the day of the engagement party arrived. I took extra care getting ready, even splurged on a salon appointment. The stylist worked magic on my normally plain hair, turning it into soft waves that framed my face perfectly. When I looked in the mirror for the first time in years, I felt proud of how I looked. As I arrived at my parents' house, I barely recognized it. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, luxury cars lined the driveway, and the front lawn looked like something out of a magazine photo shoot. Inside, the house was packed. Guests in designer outfits sipped champagne as soft classical music played in the background. Most of the people were clearly from Logan's side of the family, men in tailored suits and women in elegant gowns. The only relatives from our side that I recognized were Uncle Richard, who now owned several real estate firms, and Cousin Melissa, the heart surgeon. And then, Vanessa made her grand entrance. She gracefully floated down the staircase, glowing in her custom-made gown that probably cost more than my yearly salary. But the moment she saw me, her smile faltered, her eyes narrowed, and she headed straight toward me. Seriously, she whispered through clenched teeth, giving me a disapproving once-over. That's what you chose to wear? You look like you're going to a department store opening, not my engagement party. I instinctively glanced down at my royal blue dress, the one I had been so confident about just an hour earlier. Before I could reply, a warm male voice interrupted. There's my beautiful fiancé. Logan appeared behind her, looking every bit the wealthy gentleman in his custom-fitted suit. His parents followed closely behind, both smiling politely. Vanessa's entire demeanor transformed in an instant. She switched from furious to sweet, wrapping herself around Logan's arm. Darling, I want you to meet my beloved sister, Emily. We're so close, aren't we, sweetie? She said, batting her eyelashes. I almost choked at the hypocrisy, but forced a polite smile. Logan's parents greeted me kindly, his mother even squeezing my hands warmly. "We've heard so much about you, dear." I doubted that very much, but I mumbled something polite while catching Vanessa's sharp glare behind them. The rest of the evening blurred into forced conversations, laughter at unfunny stories, and endless clinking of champagne glasses. After a while, the noise, the fake smiles, and the suffocating atmosphere started to weigh on me. I decided it was time to leave. But first, I needed to say a quick goodbye to Vanessa. As I made my way across the crowded room, carefully holding a glass of cranberry juice, I weaved between groups of chatting guests. Vanessa stood on the far side, surrounded by Logan and his family, still basking in the center of attention. Just as I was a few steps away, it happened. Someone behind me bumped into my shoulder. I never saw who it was, and my hand jerked forward. Time seemed to slow as the juice arced through the air like a crimson ribbon, landing squarely on Vanessa's flawless white gown. The entire room froze. The vibrant red stain spread quickly across the delicate fabric, turning her custom-made dress into a disaster. The horrified gasps of the guests filled the silence. I'm so sorry," I stammered, instantly reaching for a napkin. "It was an accident, I swear." But before I could finish, Vanessa's hand shot out of nowhere. Smack! The slap landed hard across my cheek, echoing through the quiet room like a gunshot. My face burned, both from the sting and the humiliation. I stared at my sister, who stood trembling with rage, tears already smudging her perfect makeup. "You clumsy idiot," she screamed at the top of her lungs. Get out. Get out of this house right now." I instinctively turned toward my parents, silently begging for someone to intervene. But Mom's expression was cold, her voice stiff as she added, "Leave. Now. You've ruined everything." Dad couldn't even meet my eyes. He just stared down at the floor like none of this was happening. The guests remained silent, awkwardly pretending not to stare while their eyes followed my every move. With my hands shaking, I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door, my legs heavy like they were dragging through mud. The humiliation was crushing, but somehow I managed to hold back my tears until I reached the safety of my car. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't even remember how I managed to get back to my apartment. But the moment I stepped inside and locked the door behind me, I collapsed to the floor and let the tears fall. And they weren't quiet tears. They were heavy, painful sobs that shook my entire body. For 26 years, I had always been the overlooked daughter, the quiet one, the family disappointment. And tonight, my sister had turned me into public entertainment. The next morning, my eyes were swollen, and my head throbbed from all the crying. As I sat on the couch trying to gather myself, my phone started ringing. It was Vanessa. For a brief second, a tiny spark of hope flickered inside me. Maybe she had calmed down. Maybe she was calling to apologize for slapping me in front of everyone. I answered, "Hello." But I should have known better. "You stupid, worthless disaster," she exploded into my ear. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I pulled the phone away from my ear as she unleashed a stream of profanity that would have made even a sailor blush. When she finally paused, her voice turned sharper. "That dress cost me $12,500, you idiot. And you're going to pay for it. Plus, I want $7,000 for emotional damages. You humiliated me in front of Logan's entire family. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" I was stunned at the sheer audacity. "You want me to pay you over $19,000 for something that was an accident?" I asked, my voice trembling but calm. "You're lucky I'm not demanding more," she screamed. "And if you don't pay up, I swear I'll make your life miserable." I took a deep breath, surprised at how firm my voice suddenly sounded. "I'll pay for the dress because that part was truly an accident. But I'm not paying for your so-called emotional damages. Especially after you slapped me in front of a room full of people." She didn't even respond, just hung up on me. Within minutes, my phone rang again. This time it was Mom. I sighed deeply and answered. "Hello." Her tone was sharp and cold, just like it had been when I was a child. Emily, you need to pay your sister what she's asking for. You ruined her engagement party. This is your fault. Mom, it was an accident. Someone bumped into me. That doesn't matter, she snapped. You embarrassed her in front of Logan's family. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for all of us? For the first time in my life, something inside me snapped. What about how humiliating it was for me? I said, my voice shaking. What about being slapped in front of everyone? What about you and Dad standing there and saying nothing? Don't you realize you're my parents too? There was a long silence on the other end. Then, Mom's voice returned, colder than before. Either you pay Vanessa what she's asking, or your father and I are cutting you off. Don't bother calling us if you choose otherwise. I gave a bitter laugh. That's not much of a threat anymore, Mom. I'm done. Done being the family punching bag. Done being compared to her. Done being treated like I don't exist. And before she could say another word, I hung up and turned off my phone. After shutting off my phone, I sat quietly for a while, thinking I'd finally found some peace. But when I eventually turned my phone back on an hour later, I was flooded with message after message, all from Vanessa. The texts were cruel. You've always been jealous of me, you fat, pathetic loser. You've embarrassed the entire family for years. You're a sad, lonely girl renting a tiny apartment while I'm about to marry into real wealth. You'll die alone while I live like royalty in Logan's mansion. At first, I just stared at my phone in shock. But then something inside me shifted. The more I read, the angrier I became. And then came the message that changed everything. Don't worry. Logan's parents are complete fools. In a year or two, I'll have them sign over everything to me. Logan believes I actually love him. Can you believe that? He's nothing but a ticket to the good life. Once I marry him, all of their money will be mine. She followed it up with several laughing emojis, as if she was proud of her plan. Then she returned to her threats. You have until the end of this week to pay me $19,500. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone hears how you ruined my engagement out of jealousy. I sat frozen, reading her words again and again. I thought about Logan's parents, especially his mother, who had been kind to me at the party despite everything. They deserved to know the truth. Without giving myself time to overthink it, I opened Vanessa's social media profile and found Logan's mother's account. My finger hovered over the message button for a second, but then I pressed it. Mrs. Parker, this is Emily, Vanessa's sister. We met at the engagement party. I feel you deserve to know what's really going on. To my surprise, she replied almost instantly. Emily, dear, I'm so glad you reached out. I've actually been meaning to talk to you. I was very upset with how Vanessa treated you that evening. She promised me she would apologize. Has she reached out? I almost laughed out loud. Actually, ma'am, she hasn't apologized. Instead, she's demanding money from me and threatening me. But that's not even the worst part. I began taking screenshots, one by one, of every threatening, cruel, and manipulative message Vanessa had sent me. I included every detail of her plans to deceive Logan and steal from his family. I believe you and Mr. Parker deserve to know what she's planning before the wedding, I wrote. And then I sent everything. After sending all the screenshots, the next few days were eerily quiet. Vanessa didn't call. My parents didn't message. No threats. No insults. Nothing. The silence felt unnatural, like the calm before a huge storm. But then, early on Saturday morning, that storm arrived. Suddenly, loud banging echoed through my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw Vanessa standing there, her face twisted with rage, her fists pounding the door like she was about to break it down. Open this door, you backstabbing snake, she screamed loud enough for my neighbors to hear. Open it right now. I stayed behind the locked door, my heart racing but my voice steady. I'm not letting you in, Vanessa. Say what you need to say, and then leave. You ruined everything, she shrieked. Logan called off the wedding. His mother showed him the messages. You had no right to send them. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. No, I said firmly through the door. I sent them because they deserve to know the truth. You were planning to steal from them. You were lying to Logan and mocking his entire family." She screamed a string of curses I won't even repeat, probably horrifying every person in my building. Then I heard the sound of her stomping down the hallway, her voice echoing behind her. "You'll pay for this. You'll regret it." Moments later, my phone started ringing again. This time, it was my parents. I sighed deeply before answering. "What have you done?" my mother screeched. "Your sister is devastated. You've destroyed her life." "Mom," I said tiredly, "Vanessa destroyed her own life. She was lying to Logan's entire family. They deserve to know." "Don't you dare lecture me, Emily," she spat. "You've always been jealous of your sister's success, but this is unforgivable. Call Mrs. Parker right now and tell her you made those messages up." I closed my eyes, exhausted. "No. The messages were real and you know it. You just don't want to accept that Vanessa finally exposed who she really is." "You're spiteful, Emily," Mom shouted. "Your father, and I never want to hear from you again." And I calmly replied, "Good. I'm done with all of you." Then I hung up, and this time I blocked their numbers. The following days passed quietly, almost too quietly. But I stayed strong. My cousin Rachel, one of the few family members who had always been kind, called to check on me. She filled me in on what had happened after the engagement was called off. According to Rachel, Logan had not only broken off the engagement, but completely ended his relationship with Vanessa. His mother had shown Logan and his father every single message I had forwarded. They read all of Vanessa's cruel words, her plans to manipulate their family, her mocking insults, and her scheme to steal their money. Logan was furious, but even more than that, he was heartbroken. Vanessa had packed her things and moved back in with our parents. She was now crying to anyone who would listen, telling them that I had ruined her life out of jealousy. And, of course, my parents were fully supporting her version of events, painting me as the bitter sister who couldn't stand to see Vanessa happy. But deep down, I knew the truth. And more importantly, Logan and his family knew the truth. That weekend, while sipping coffee in my apartment, I made a decision. I was done with the toxic cycle. I needed a clean break. During my lunch break the following Monday, I started browsing rental listings. I found a beautiful new apartment on the other side of Brookville, a little bigger than my current place, in a quieter neighborhood I had always loved but never dared to move to before. When I signed the lease and carried the last box into my new apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Some people might call what I did revenge. But it wasn't revenge, it was justice. For the first time in my life, I chose self-respect over toxic family loyalty. And that night, as I lay in my new bedroom, staring at the ceiling, I smiled softly to myself. Because I knew I would sleep soundly now. If you enjoyed listening to my story, please make sure to like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories like this. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching.